Hi guys, I am here today to teach you all about some really cool mold pouring techniques. And by that I don't mean black mold like you're gonna die. I mean molds such as this, okay? Pouring into molds, what we can put into them, different materials that will look really neat in the mold with different mediums. And today I'm going to be showing you a few different mediums that I like to use when doing molds, and a few that one that I just started using. So I'm going to jump right into it. I just kind of wanted to have these out as, a first little look at what we're going to be talking about. Now, take a second and think, can you look at any of these that you see right now? Can you tell which ones are clay and which ones are something else? Cue the Jeopardy music. Dun, 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 dun. You know that thing? I don't know if I can insert that in. I probably can't, so enjoy my musical stylings. But this is, what I've been kind of keeping under wraps, not for any reason other than I wanted to be really sure what would work in the different mediums, like what would stay put, what would look cool when you pour on top of it, what looks better mixed in. And I just wanted to make sure I had that all on lock before I started showing it. Cause what if I didn't like how they turned out, or what if I tried to mix something in and it didn't work? And then I was, showing people already. And I didn't want to have any of that nonsense. I wanted to make sure I had solid ground to stand on when I came to show you guys all this cool stuff. So, this guy and these guys are made out of clay. These are all concrete with different things in them. And these are a material called Jesmonite, which I'm going to give you a good alternative for, because Jesmonite is really, really hard to get in the United States. It's pretty expensive here. It's basically they call it an eco resin because all a resin is things turning to a hard substance through a chemical reaction when two things mix, okay? So they call this an eco resin because it is non-toxic. So it is safe to breathe in the air when these chemicals are coming together and forming their final product, and when they're hardening and stuff. We'll talk more about that later. But what I want to get into, because I don't want to make this too terribly long, I'm going to show you a few different ways you can make liquid clay look more similar to concrete and more similar to Jesmonite, because I know a lot of people will have liquid clay on hand, or you guys will be able to access it easier. And I'll tell you a few good places you can get jewelry concrete or regular concrete, and I will link all of these things in the notes, and I will also link all the little doodads we're going to put inside here. But I am going to go ahead and try to speed up. You guys know I can be long-winded, but just take a second. How cool is this? It looks like I found a cool rock outside. Didn't. I made it on purpose. And how pretty. Can't even with this. Okay, we're going to start with liquid clay. Like I said, it's what I assume a lot of you have on hand or would be most comfortable working with, would have to purchase the least amount of things in order to get started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for the concrete look, and I'm going to be trying to mix the liquid clay so it looks similar to that. You don't have to. You could apply basically any color to this, so you could make a light pink or whatever. Sculpey has so many different liquid clay colors that you really could use your imagination and go crazy. But since I'm going for this minimalist, concrete kind of natural look, I'm going to aim to get our clay looking somewhat like that. So I'm just going to start with some white liquid Sculpey. Make sure you always stir your liquid Sculpey first, because it does settle in the bottom and it can get kind of hard. And I'm almost out of white, so pardon me, I'm going to shake this down off camera so I can get some in there. Now we are filling molds, so you want to take a look when you're doing this. Take a look at the size of the mold you're filling, because that's going to be essential to how much you're mixing up if you want to make a pair of earrings. Let me backtrack real quick. I happen to have two of these molds just because Sculpey sent me one when I was on the Sculpey squad, or I guess I still am, but they sent me one for that, and then I had bought one myself, I don't know, a long time ago. So I've got 2 of these molds, which is really handy because if I want to make earrings and I want to use the bigger spots, I can just fill up 2 things. Most molds, for whatever reason, maybe not most, but a lot of them, only have like 1 of each shape. So like this gemstone mold I really like, but I have to do everything like twice to fill it, which is kind of annoying. So I think that if this type of earring takes off for me, like the concrete ones particularly, I think that I would probably buy another one of those molds so I could do a pair at a time. Just because that way everything is the same and cohesive. Doesn't matter so much with the liquid clay because I could mix up liquid Sculpey and it would stay fine for a month if I covered it up. But with the concrete and with the Jesmonite, you're gonna find you have to work a little bit quicker. Well, I'm gonna go for, oh, hold on 1 second, I'm getting a phone call and it might be my kid's school. Okay, that was my daughter's school. She had a headache. I had to pick her up, so she's home now. Hopefully she stays nice and quiet in the other room. But as I was saying, we are going to try to mix up our liquid Sculpey to be somewhat like this concrete color, just so you can sort of imitate that look if you don't want to buy concrete or a different medium. So I have my white Sculpey in. I've got some molds. I've got a rough idea of, you know, how much clay I need to fill the mold. Okay, so I'm going to mix up a little bit more, and then I'll kind of show you the size of this cup so you can see, but this is really going to be eyeballing. A lot of you asked this week for color recipes from me. And I think I told all of you, like, I completely eyeball everything and I just mix things to the color that I want. I'm a former hairstylist, so I was actually an educator. And so I had a lot of experience with, I'm almost out of white, so we might only be able to make 1 pair. So I might just have to give this up right here. But I used to teach color theory. So knowing all about how to cancel out certain colors, how to amplify other colors, how to cover up certain tones and, you know, change the look of a color was something that I taught for many years, and it's sort of ingrained in my brain, and I just do it without thinking with clay because my mind just knows the color wheel so well. So what I'm going to try to do this month, I just put a drop of black in. Okay, so we're going to mix that up. What I'm going to try to do over the next maybe week or so is I'm going to try to pin down actual recipes for the colors I made for my Christmas collection or holiday collection. Like I said, I'm going to try, you guys. I don't know how successful I'll be. I'm sure I can figure it out. It just might take me some trial and error. So I'm also getting ready for a big show. And I am really pumped about that. It's a 2-day show in my hometown. Well, the town I live in now. I don't know if I would consider this my hometown, but the town that I live in, Flossmoor, Illinois. It is a very like artsy, very art appreciative town. And these people like go wild for handmade items. So they know that I live here. So they're very, very supportive. So I have so many people from the town and the area come out every year and really go crazy buying stuff. And that's sort of why I wanted to offer something different this year that I haven't offered before, just because so many people do come and buy from me. I thought they might like to see something new. I don't know if that's where my train of thought was going originally. Oh, I'm getting ready for that show. And so I don't have a ton of extra time right now because I still have to make all my holiday earrings. And, yeah, I will try to get to making those color recipes, but it's probably going to be after my show. Okay, so I mixed this up to like a very light concrete-ish gray. The concrete, like the jewelry concrete that I have is, it's got a little more of a taupe tonality to it. It's like almost like a taupe-ish gray. So it's got a little more of that like brown color in there, but I kind of like having a cool gray option too. So I am going to leave this tone rather than add any kind of like brown anything into it. I'm also going to add just a little sprinkle of some black sand just to give it like a bit of texture in the look instead of it just looking so smooth like clay. We're just going to add a little bit of black sand in there. The cool thing with this is that you can really add almost anything as long as you don't, you know, fill it up so much to where the clay isn't going to be able to bond to itself and form the polymer chains. As long as you don't fill it up that much, you can add anything you want in here. We know what this is going to look like if we just bake it. It's just going to look like this light gray clay with some sand in it. Okay, we already know it's going to look smooth. We know what baked clay looks like. It's going to look like, let's see what I got over here. It's going to look roughly like the back of this piece. Okay, just like that gray color. So instead of just doing that, because you guys already know how that'll turn out, let's add some things in because that's more fun. So what I have been loving lately, and I'm going to link these for you guys because I feel like they have really upped the look of my pieces, is, dun, 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 dun. I don't know what they're called, but I'll link them for Amazon. These really amazing, let's move that out of the way so I don't knock it over, little gold leaf pieces that are not just gold. So this one has a lot of like pinks and reds and purples in there. It's like so pretty. And then this one has like, I call it my oil spill flakes because it kind of has that oil spill look to it with like the blues and the greens and the purples and things like that. So cool. So I've been using these in like basically all of my recent like scrap clay pieces, or anytime I would use gold leaf. I'm really enjoying these colors. So let's go ahead and use some of these in our mold to kind of give it that cool concrete jewelry look. I don't know if you guys have seen concrete jewelry beforehand, like before this. I've seen it a few times, like had it pop up in my feed, and I was like, dang, that's cool. I want to do that with clay. I want to do that with like everything because it just looks neat. So all I'm going to do, oops, I didn't realize you couldn't see what I was doing, is I am going to press this gold leaf right into the mold. And you are going to want to press it so that it stays. Okay, so you want it to like be on the silicone. You're going to place it however you want it, but make sure it's kind of like stuck because we don't want our clay to get under it. So just make sure it's stuck on there. If you want it to look a little more distressed, you can go in with whatever little stirring tool you want and you can kind of carve out a little bit of it so it looks more sporadical and a little more rugged on the edges. Oops, that piece came up. But just do your best to like really stick it to the silicone. And usually silicone is pretty sticky. I feel like this mat isn't quite as sticky as like the pink silicone mats. Like stuff does not come off of those unless you wash it. These ones are a little easier just to like wipe stuff off of. So I'm going to stick some of that in both sides. Now working with clay, you could fill any old mold you want and you could be able to drill a hole in it later. Okay, so just remember that as we go along. Because I'm working with clay, I don't need to do anything special as far as getting any kind of finding into it or creating a hole or anything like that, because I can easily do it afterwards. So I'm just going to do the same thing here, kind of like rough this up a little. It's okay if there's some like chunky bits, especially on the edges and stuff. That will kind of create, let me show you, let's see, what else do I have? That'll kind of create like divots. Oops. My autofocus is not my friend right now. It'll sort of create little divots in the clay, which gives this like some texture and a little bit more of like a gemstone-ish feel. And I think that's really cool. So that's kind of created when there's a little bit of an air pocket. And that happens when your gold leaf is a little bit chunky. And I think that's pretty neat. So I'm gonna leave it like that. And then we're just gonna fill our mold. So I'm just gonna pour the clay in. La-di-da-di-da. Now you don't have to fill these all the way full. Like this does not have to be as chunky of a charm as what this mold is. I'm just filling it because that's like the amount-ish that I mixed up. So, but you could, you know, make it much more shallow, and it's clay, so it will still be just as strong and it'll be fine. What I like to do is I like to just kind of go around the side a little bit to make sure there's not any big air bubbles on the side of my mold. And then I like to make sure that the clay is all the way up around right here where the hole will be formed. Okay, so I just kind of go around the edge. This little guy is being a pest. And just make sure that everything's filled in and that there aren't big air bubbles. Okay, everything looks good. If you wanted to, I mean, let's do it just for the heck of it. You could speckle some gold leaf over the top, so that way the backs of your earrings look really pretty. Might as well, right? This guy wants to be there anyway, so let's tip him in. I'm just gonna, we'll just put a little bit on there, not that much. And then we're gonna be following the Sculpey liquid clay baking directions, which are 300 degrees. And then obviously the timing will vary depending on the thickness of your piece. The instructions are in the back of the bottle, but I will probably just bake this for 45 minutes at 300. I'm gonna pause there and pop them in the oven. All right, I am ready to get started with our concrete. So what I'm using is Create Recklessly Artist Concrete, and this can be found on Amazon. I will link it. It's super easy to use. The basic recipe is 1 tablespoon of concrete, half a teaspoon of water, and then 1/16 teaspoon of pigment if you want it. You don't have to put pigment in it. And you just add little drops of water as you want to get the consistency a little more liquidy, but you don't want to make it too liquidy because then it won't set up correctly. So it is meant to be like slightly thick, and you'll see that. But we're going to use this. I already made these pieces, and so I pre-filled these molds with the gold leaf so you didn't have to watch me doing all of that nonsense. And we will make the pears for all these guys. And then I am going to show you a few other ways that we can add things in that are going to be really fun. One thing I also wanted to show you is Sculpey makes this really cool pendant mold. Why could I not think of the word mold? Makes a really cool pendant mold, and it's super awesome for these concrete pieces. They end up looking like really cool. But when I was experimenting, what I found out is that you definitely cannot drill into this with a regular Dremel drill afterwards. So if you don't put something in for a pendant like right away, then you know you're kind of out of luck. Or during the curing process, not right away. And I'll show you how to do that. We are going to start by mixing our concrete. I'm going to get out a few of my stainless steel posts so that I have them handy. And what we're going to put into the concrete on these ones are some stones. So we're going to use some natural gemstones right here. And in these rectangles, I'm going to put some mica powder. The mica powder creates a really cool effect. I'm not sure if I have any up here that have mica powder right now. Ooh, so that'll be a fun reveal. But because the mica powder is a powder and it kind of has some air in it, when you pour the concrete over it, it almost like puffs the air out a little bit. And so you get like divots and cool things. So we will experiment with that. I'm going to put all of my things in before I mix the concrete, because the concrete will start setting and getting harder within like 5 minutes. You can still work with it a little bit, but it's going to be a little trickier. So you want your last step when you're all ready to be mixing your concrete. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and add some mica powder, pink. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little scoop of it. I had too much there. And I'm just gonna put it wherever I want. Let's just stick like sort of to the bottom of this. And I'm gonna spread it out a little, but I'm not gonna super mash it in. I might mash it in some spots. Whatever is smushed really down to the mold with mica powder is not gonna get picked up by the concrete. So it needs to have like a little bit of beef to it for the concrete to pick it up. If it's like, if I sort of like smushed it all and spread it all in here like you would on the top of a piece of clay, the concrete isn't gonna lift it from the silicone. So you just wanna have it like a little bit more fluffy. So I'm gonna put in a little bit of pink. And then I'm gonna put in some of this ancient copper. And this is from the gigantic mica powder kit that I have. I mean, they have smaller kits, but I am really loving having all the options that are in this kit the more I use it. I'm kind of getting addicted to mica powder right now, just because I love how it looks when you, especially when you do like the watercolor dreams technique and the mica powder spreads out and it just has that like subtle sheen to it. It's so beautiful. So I'm sort of using it in just about everything I do these days, rather than gold leaf all the time. It's really nice. So I'll link that again for you. But like I said, they have smaller kits and bigger kits. You don't have to do a gigantic one like I did, but it also includes glitters, which is kind of nice. Okay, this is rose gold. So I'm gonna put a little bit of that. What I'm kind of thinking about when I'm doing this is, number one, where I want to see the mica powder, and also how blendy I want it to be. Like, I kind of want some of the colors to blend in together, but I also want to be able to see each individual color. So I'm just using my artist's eye to spread this how I want. I don't want to like mix it all together. So I want you to be able to see that it's 3 different colors. I picked 3 shades that were similar in tone and in darkness, like the darkness lightness scale, because I wanted them to be sort of complementary to each other rather than contrasting for this. I just thought these colors would look really pretty with that taupey gray of the concrete. Okay, so I'm just spreading that out a little. And then I'm noticing actually I have it spread out more here and I want it to be a little more symmetrical. So I'm just gonna tap it out a little bit more on this side. Okay, now I'm going to put in some stones, and this is another really cool kit that I have that I'll link for you. I feel like this video is going to have 1,000 links. But I have this kit, and it actually came really nice with like foam, and everything is like in its own little foam section. But my husband needed the foam for my son's Halloween costume, and so now all of my apothecary is all over the place. But this comes with like all these really cool gemstones, and it's nice to have. They're very well organized. I like these little bottles. It makes me feel like I have an apothecary in the early 1800s and someone's coming to buy stones from me. It's kind of cool. So I'm just gonna tap some in here. Oh, that one's too big. That's a big guy. What you gotta keep in mind, number one, is that you do need some concrete to kind of settle to the bottom to hold everything in place. So if I filled the whole bottom with stones, that would be okay, but you're almost only gonna see the top of them because the concrete is going to like fill in all those spots. So what I kind of like to do is push them toward the edge, because then the concrete's gonna fill in, and I try to make sure there's like a little space between them and that they're sort of flat, because it isn't gonna do a whole lot if they're on top of each other. I need enough space for the concrete to fill in, but if some of them are touching the sides, you'll get this cool effect where it's like broken almost, and it just looks really natural. It just looks really, really cool. I love how that looks. So I like to do that. And so I'm going to push these ones to this side. Again, making sure that there's some space for the concrete to settle in, and that the rocks aren't super overlapping, because then you're not gonna see them anyway and you're just wasting your stones. I want some of them touching the edge so that I get that broken up, minimalistic. Minimalistic is not the word I'm looking for. I'm looking for the word that means Oh, apocalyptic. That's the word I'm looking for. You know what I mean? Like the kind of like broken concrete and rough edges. I just think that looks really neat. So I'm just gonna kind of push those in there. And the concrete, like I said, will fill in the gaps. So I do press them down a little, just hoping that they slightly adhere to the silicone, so that way, you know, we'll be able to see them when the concrete settles. Okay, so we've got those things ready. Now we're going to mix our concrete. I wish I had little paper cups, but I don't. I just have these plastic ones. I would prefer to work in a paper cup just because it's like just more disposable. It's more earth friendly, but the kit that I had of Jesmonite came with these, so I'm kind of like, all right, I'm just gonna use them. But I do plan to buy paper cups to use those because I do try to be more on the eco-friendly side of things if I can. So we're gonna go ahead and mix up the full, this is what it looks like. I believe you could use regular concrete for this too. You would just want to get a fine one that's like this and it's not full of aggregate, which is like broken up pieces of rock. You want it to be like the ultra fine concrete. This stuff is also incredibly lightweight. I would say it's as light or lighter than polymer clay. It feels like air. Okay, so that's another cool thing. Like these look really like hardy and they make a cool sound when they land on things, but they are super duper lightweight, which is awesome. This stuff is also, it's powdery. It doesn't really go anywhere too much, but if you feel like it's floofing around, always be sure to protect yourself and wear a mask if that is what your preference is. I am not, you know, the mask police, so you're adults. I trust you to do what you think is safest for you. Okay, so then the instructions say to add half a teaspoon of water. I always start out with that, but I feel like that is always way too thick. So I always add more water. Like this, you can't pour this into a mold. And I know my measurements weren't super exact. So I just mix it up. Obviously, this is too crumbly and not gonna work. So I'm gonna add just a little bit more. And I'm not adding, it's probably like a 1/4 teaspoon is what I added to this. Eventually you'll be able to just eyeball it. Okay, this is still too thick. You see how it's like very gloppy. This stuff smells really earthy also. It smells like you're playing with dirt, which is kind of fun. Okay, so I'm just adding a few more drops of water. And you really just want to go in those little drop increments because you see I added a few drops and look how much better it is. I would say this is about the right consistency. It's like when you stir your ice cream up and it's just starting to melt, if you've ever done that. If you stir your ice cream and it gets just to that melty, creamy consistency, that's perfect for this. I used to only ever stir my ice cream when I was little, and I wanted this consistency, no runnier, just like a little soft serve, okay? And that's perfect. So now all you do is pour it into the mold. If you want to embed your posts, okay? So if you want to embed these, you're going to want to leave a little space. So you're not gonna wanna fill this mold all the way because you're gonna want to wait about 15 minutes for your concrete to set and then put this in and then add another little layer of concrete to hold it in. And then it will be embedded like this. Okay, so this isn't going anywhere at all. Very, very solid. Super easy, then you don't have to worry about gluing or resining or anything. Remember, you have about 5 minutes to work with this before it starts getting crazy. So I'm gonna start pouring on the non-rock side, and then I'm just gonna let it sort of fill in, and I put way too much in that because I was talking and not paying attention. Okay, let me pay attention. Adding to the non-rock side, add little by little because it will spread out. And then I am going to just gently tap this over because I don't want it to I want to still be able to see the rocks. So I don't want to jostle them and move them out of the position I took time to put them in. So I'm just going to really gently use my tool, and I'm using like bamboo skewers. You could use a toothpick or any tool you want, really, doesn't matter. And I often will work on a big piece of paper too, because this can get messy. I'm not right now because my 1950s kitchen has an indestructible countertop. Like literally my kids have written on it with permanent marker and it wipes right off with bleach. I don't know what they were doing in the 50s, but they were doing something right. All of my cabinetry like just wipes clean. It's crazy. It's all metal, very retro. Okay, so I'm gonna put this in here, and I know I want to embed my posts to these ones. I am going to put a little bit more in because that's not quite as full as I want. Oops, see, I got some concrete on my counter already. You can just keep like a damp paper towel near you too and wipe that up really quickly. So that way it doesn't stay if you have like a more finicky surface you're working on. But it should, you know, if it hardens, you should be able to just pick it right off like a little rock. And pro tip, anytime I want to work on a big piece of paper or something, or I'm doing something like this, I just like save gift wrap. So old gift wrap that like I'm not going to reuse, and it's maybe like a big piece and it's crumply, or it's like the last weird piece that doesn't fit any gift. You can use that to work on top of because you already bought it, or you already opened the gift that, you know, was in it. You might as well use it for something. So I save it and use it for crafty things and underneath when my children paint and stuff like that. I'm going to set those aside. You can give these like a little wiggle just to make sure there's no air bubbles, but I have found that the concrete does not get too many air bubbles at all. See, like nothing's coming up here. Yeah, the concrete sets really nicely and really doesn't get bubbly. And even if it does get a little bubbly, all that's gonna do is make it look like, you know, like it had a little bubble in it, and kind of goes along with the look and the charm of it. All right, so now we're gonna come over here. I'm not quite sure I have enough for these, so I might have to mix more, but I won't make you watch it. I'm gonna fill this up. This one has a pre-made little hole for an earring, so I will not have to embed a post in this. With the mica powder, you want to make sure it goes right over it. It's going to start pushing away just like mica powder does with clay. So I'll show you what to do once I get the concrete in here. Trying to do this as neatly as possible, but this is a really thin little shape. Okay, so you kind of have to spread this over. It's already starting to set a little because the mica powder will, oh yeah, it's like setting. Woo. The mica powder will push away from it, and that's okay. That's what we want because we kind of want that airy look, but you do need to make sure it's a little bit adhered. Okay, yeah, this is really setting, so I'm gonna have to move a little quicker. So this is definitely small batch work. Don't think you're gonna do like 20 molds in a short period of time. Like you probably need to do 5 molds at a time, 5 or 6, just because it does start to set, which is cool because it's pretty fast. It's fully set, I believe, and you know, the point you would take it out of the mold is like 1 hour, they say. I think it sets before that, but it's probably best to err on the side of caution and just leave it in the mold until it's fully ready. Okay. I'm gonna attempt to smooth this out just a little bit, and I'm gonna go off screen to mix up more to put into this mold, and then I will return. I just wanted to come back really quick while these are settling to embed some posts and show you how I do that. This has been maybe 10, 15 minutes, but what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna press down a little bit. You can kind of like come under the concrete And you want to make sure that they're straight. And then I'm going to bring my little concrete tool. And I'm just going to smooth this back over. You could also pour more concrete over it, over the post to make it stay. I'm just going to make sure that's standing up straight because I may be doing this a little bit too early. It's sort of like bending down. But you can either embed it like this, where you just push it in and then move the concrete around so it's back in a solid layer and it will level out really nicely. Or you could wait a little bit longer, which is what I'm going to do with these. It's been about an hour, so our clay pieces have baked and our concrete pieces should be nice and settled. When I demold the concrete, it's a little earlier than I normally would. I would usually just leave it in there probably for closer to 2 hours. If you take it out at 1 hour, it's supposed to be fully set, but I would leave it alone a little bit. I wouldn't go too crazy messing around with it. I just like to give things where I've mixed stuff together, I like to give them a little bit more time to really settle in and all those bonds to form and become very strong. So probably, you know, just let them sit around for a day or a few more hours or whatever before you start tinkering around with them. But let's go ahead and demold. The most exciting part of this whole process is taking things out and seeing how they turned out. So these were the clay ones, and remember we just did one pair of these because we all have liquid clay and kind of know what it looks like. So here is the liquid clay. Obviously I will trim up these edges and make it look a little nicer, but we got some of that like dotting and air bubbling that makes this look more minimalistic and kind of like rough and tumble. And you can see where it picked up the leafing. Okay, so that'll be a cute little earring. We've got this guy too. Obviously needs some cleaning up. Let's put them side by side. Okay, so we've got those. And then I'm going to demold these. And I just press kind of from the center usually and just try to loosen everything up rather than just grabbing it and like yanking it out of here. I try to be a little careful. Okay, so the concrete also you can sand. You see how it looks, it almost looks wet. It won't look like that in a little bit. It'll kind of like dry and get more of just this plain gray color. So you just got to let it settle in. But you can see where you get that really cool, all those little indentations. You can actually, at this point when it's still, you know, it's solid, but it's not like crazy hard, you can actually go in and kind of make more of those little indentations if you want. So if you want this to look a little more distressed, you just go in with your little pick, a little sharp tool, and you can just sort of find those pockets and widen them. And I'll show you that on the stone ones too, because it works a little easier with those. And like I said, this can be sanded. Even after it fully hardens, you can sand these edges. So I leave it alone and I don't do the sanding until later, just to be on the safe side. I'm just gonna pop it out of here. And I'm realizing this is already a very long video. So I'm gonna do the Jesmonite one separately so I can get this up for you guys quicker. And I'll do Jesmonite probably a different day. It's really a very similar process, just a different material. So it's not gonna be like that groundbreaking. It'll just be kind of a little bonus with a new material you can try if you feel like it. I'm gonna save those for last because those are so fun. Okay, we're gonna pop these guys out. We embedded the posts, so those will be nice and hardened. And then you have a cute little gem looking earring, which I've got the little sister too, so I probably need to go and embed the back into that also. And again, with these, if you feel like you're not seeing enough of the gold or whatever, you can go in and just scrape a little of the concrete off. Or you can sand it too. So you can take, let's see if I have sandpaper handy. You can take sandpaper and just kind of, I try to go really gentle and slow because you don't want to take the gold leaf off, but you can just sort of use that to get any little bits of concrete off of there and expose your gold leaf a little more. All sorts of really cool, fun things you can do with these molds. I love them. And on Amazon, you can get molds of like every dang thing. And you can use them with clay too. Okay, so this one is the sister of this one. So I did on this one go through and like kind of punch the holes in a little more because I really wanted to see more of the foil. So you almost get like little air pockets and you can kind of pop them, which also makes this really fun. And it makes it very unique to you. So each piece is going to be like very different, which I love. A sucker for something really unique that you can make your own. Okay, so that's kind of how I handle that situation with the poking. And then let's demold these guys. Again, being gentle, and like that one that I was just poking around on, I wouldn't really poke around on it too much. I would do it later. Like when everything's really settled in, go in and use sandpaper or use one of these tools and excavate some of your stones. I just really don't like doing too much when I know it's not fully solid, but you can really kind of poke that out and make it look more distressed and uncover some more of your gems. It's like I'm a little archaeologist, you guys. So you can see those little stones in there. We could uncover them more if we wanted to. And I might, but I'm probably gonna let them harden just a little bit more first. Okay, so very cool, very pretty. Once I have these a little more finished, I will do a final shot and then I will edit this video and get it out to you with Jesmonite soon to follow. Okay, friends, here are all the concrete pieces finished. I just wanted to let you know to definitely make sure that after you demold them, after the appropriate amount of time, whatever your concrete says, mine says an hour, just leave them alone for a while because I actually ended up kind of like breaking one because it just wasn't fully cured, and I was able to fix it. But just my advice would be to wait a while. These are so cool. I love how they look. I'm gonna come back to you with the Jesmonite ones in a different tutorial because this one's already running long. I've also got the clay pieces, but for Instagram purposes, I was videoing this and I liked this layout of just the concrete. But yeah, our clay pieces turned out really cool too. It's just a fun option, you know, for you to have in your wheelhouse using a mold. I also wanted to say you can add pigments of different sorts to the concrete. I know they make actual concrete pigment, but I have had success adding alcohol ink or mica to the concrete to change the color a little bit. So that's a cool thing you can do. You can really add any type of additive to it and it takes it really, really well. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this and thought it was cool. Definitely let me know if you guys want to stick like 100% just to clay, because I can do that, but I just found this and thought it was really, really cool, and I just love this look. So I hope you love it too. Thanks as always for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. I really, really do. Can't say it enough. And I hope that if you use this technique that you will show me what you made. I would love to see it. And I've got all sorts of other goodies coming for you this month and next month, so stay tuned.